Hey, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone out there in Microsoft Teams world. Thank you so much for joining us today. I have Christian Buckley with me. I'm Russ Bazura, and we're going to get started in a couple minutes with our session on 20 tips for Microsoft Teams. Give everybody a minute to join, but we're going to go through 20 separate tips that we feel are valuable. Christian and I put together a list that was 80 to 100 tips long to begin with, and we kind of worked that down. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that are important, so to whittle it down to 20, it should be good.
Yeah, go ahead, Christian.
I think it's to whittle it down to 20. So I would just, to help frame it, not that these are the top 20 things that you should to go and do. I think there's should be quite a few things that you've probably not seen or have heard about but not yet played with, but will hopefully highlight some things that'll add some productivity to your team's activities.
Yeah, there's a lot of great tips out there. So, we've basically whittled it down to, 20 of the ones that we feel are strong, and we're going to share those. So let's get started. And let's see if I can get. Okay, welcome everyone to 20 tips to improve productivity with Microsoft Teams. I am Russ Bazura. I am the founder and CEO of Excel 365. We are a Microsoft partner outside of Philadelphia. My background is SharePoint. I usually tell people I've been doing SharePoint since before it was SharePoint, because I actually was involved in the testing with the product development teams for what eventually became SharePoint 2001. So my involvement goes back to around 99. I've been working with mid-size and enterprise companies all along that time. I spent 10 years growing a Microsoft Gold certified partner. And as part of that, I ran the Philadelphia area SharePoint user group for about 8 years. And it's just typical user group meeting. We met every month. And it's just looking back, it's like, wow, 8 years. But I've done SharePoint Saturdays, I've done SharePoint conferences, I've written some books, and for the last 5 years, I've been working from home, and I love it. And it's definitely an adjustment for everybody, but I think the tips that we're going to have for you today will help you both with working from home and just in terms of being more productive. So with me today is Christian Buckley. Christian is a Microsoft MVP and regional director. He's the founder and CEO of Collab Talk, and Christian's been around the SharePoint environment for I'm sure as around as long as I have.
Not quite. I consider you an old timer. I didn't get involved with SharePoint until 2005. So.
Oh, okay. So I got you by a couple years then.
Yeah, a couple versions.
Yeah. So, and Christian has been working from home longer than I have.
Yep, since 2009.
Yeah. So with that, what I want to do is just kind of start going through our tips, and just to give everybody a feel for how we're going to do this is we've broken the tips up into sections of 5. And I'm going to take the first 5 and go through the first 5 tips, and then I'm going to hand over control to Christian, and Christian will go through 5, and then we'll switch back and till we get done. I think this is going to take us about 45 minutes to get through, because I think some of them will be able to go through fairly quickly. and that should leave some time for question and answers. The Q&A panel is open, so if you have questions as we're going through it, please submit through there. I'll try and keep an eye on it, or Christian, if you see something come in, feel free. Let's stop and kind of address questions as we go through, as long as we're staying on time.
Definitely. Yeah. So I'll monitor during your tips, and likewise.
Fantastic. So we're going to start with using tags. It's to basically group people. It's a logical grouping within your teams and channels, so that you can define a way of grouping people. And the benefit to it is you can then use them and mention that tag in posts. So you can use that tag as part of your discussions. You can go through, you can see how many people are assigned to that tag. You can also use that to basically start a chat with that group. And primarily the team owners are the ones that are responsible for managing those tags, but the team owners also have the capability to assign that capability to create and manage tags to other members of the teams. So you have that capabilities. You can edit the tag name once it's created. You can add and remove members from it. There's inside of the members list, if you go into manage team inside your team, you will see on there that there's a tags column, and right from in there you can assign and remove tags associated with each individual. So it makes it a really quick, easy way of working with it. One thing, well, two things really about teams or tags. You can only assign members of a team to a tag. So, and the other thing is you cannot use tags as part of your meeting. So if you're setting up a meeting, you cannot use that tag like a distribution list, essentially, to send out to. So those are two things that I came across with using the tags. I have put a link for some additional information on the right-hand side of the screen here, and you'll see that on a lot of different slides, so that if there's additional information we want to share. And these presentations will be available. The video will be put up on YouTube, and we will share all that out afterwards. So,
I think one of the biggest confusion that people have is hashtags versus these tags. And hashtags, of course, you've been able to do and create as you're adding commenting in a conversation, and be able to go and find and search on that hashtag. These tags are different than those hashtags.
Yes, they are. Yeah, I mean, these are groupings that are specifically for people as opposed to content. So inside of our team, if we go to our channel, we can drop down off of the ellipsis and we'll get an option on there to manage our tags. So if you select manage tags, it'll bring up the tag screen, and from here you can basically create a tag, assign a name, and then at this point it won't yet allow you to save it until you add people into that tag. So let's go through and add a couple individuals. We'll add Miriam, we'll add Les, we can add, we're going to add Nestor, we're going to add Joni, and Megan. So with that, let's create the tag. And now you can see we have both a sales team tag and the sales managers tag. So you can see the sales managers has 6 people in it, and sales team has 5. So let's look at sales team, and you can see the members that are in it, but you can actually start a chat with the group right from here. So let's select chat with group, and it opens up a chat for you with those members. So that essentially then you can just start communicating with them directly. So, you can have your conversations and all back and forth here. This is one of the things that you can't do. Is you're already inside of a chat with the group that's on that tag. So at this point, you're not actually able to mention that in there. But if you go out and we'll go create a new chat essentially here. And at that point, we can go on to the to line and do essentially a sales team, and you can see the options, both sales manager and sales team show up, and it takes us right back to the discussion that we were having. But it allows us to reference that tag from that point forward. So we'll just type a quick message here. Thanks for joining our call. And now let's go in and let's take a look at the manage team so I can show you how to assign these tags in even a quicker fashion here. So we'll jump into our sales and marketing here and select manage team. And from our member screen here, you can see we have a tags column, and we'll drop down our members and guests so we can see everybody that is part of our team. And as we scroll down the page here, you'll see in that tags column what items, sorry about that, what items are so here's back to our member screen here. So sorry, catch up with where we are. But here you have the tags that are assigned for each of the individuals that are part of it. So if we select a little tag here, you can see the tags that I can assign them to either a sales team or sales managers. By doing that, I can enter them to both tags, as well as if somebody's already a part of a tag, I can go in. You can see here they both have 7 tags associated with them. Sorry, 7 members in each of those. So you can see the members associated with it.
There's a great question that Belinda has of when a new person is added to the tag, will he be added to the group chat automatically?
For any new chats that are occurring, yes.
Yeah, so they won't get any of the historical chats that have happened, but they'll have access to everything going forward.
Correct. They'll be able to see the history of that chat. Okay. So that's tags. The second one is I'm a big fan of search, and I think a couple reasons why is it's one of the questions that I get asked so often is people are not able to find what they're looking for. And I think for small companies it's not as big of a deal where you don't have as many teams in the environment, you don't have as many documents or messages going back and forth. But as you take advantage of teams in an enterprise, that could potentially have thousands of teams set up, it does become, more challenging to find information. So knowing how to leverage the search capabilities that Teams gives you for both messages and files is a really important aspect of being productive with Teams. So, you can go into the search bar and just do a free keyword search and all for something, but where I found the power of it is with what's called property value searches and essentially content searching. So I'm showing some here for the combinations. So attachment named is one of the properties you can search by. From has attachment, importance level, whether a message is read, subject, the type of message it is, who it was to, the size of the message, are just a few of the examples for it. And with this link here, there's a bunch of additional properties that you can actually search on, depending on whether you're searching on messages or files. Here's actually some for the files. So if you're looking for a file, you have the capability to do the author, file name, and it does use a Boolean search. So terms like and, or, plus, minus, near, near, all work as part of building your search queries. So you can really start building some complex queries to go against the content inside of Teams to get back your data. So just take a quick look at that. So if we start with our up in our search bar, and we basically just go attachment names and colon and Contoso and hit enter, it'll return back the results. So we've got two messages here, and what it's telling us is both of those have attachments in them that have Contoso in the name of the attachment. So there you can see the two messages. Now we can also add to that for by just doing an and saying, okay, I want to see messages that are also from Alex. So it basically do from as the property with a colon and Alex. And now it reduces the search results down to just messages that are from Alex that have attachment, has Contoso in the attachment name. So that'll get those search results. Now, if we want to clear that out, we can try some other queries here, and we can go look for files. So using author as Megan, you can see I'm not getting any messages back, but I will get back a significant number of files. So if I add that again, and I add file name in there and Contoso, it'll reduce the search results down to just the files that were authored by Megan and have Contoso in the file name. So you can continue to build these queries this way, adding in the different values, and it just continues to refine the search results in here. So if I add last modified time greater than January 1st of 2016, it's going to keep those two files in there. But if I change this now to 2018, you're going to see that both of those search results are going to be removed from the result set. So you can use this and just keep combining these and come out with a significant set of results. So one of my other favorite tips is around the website tab, and I just don't think you can make enough use of the website tab.
Hey, Russ, before
yes.
you jump into that one, there were a couple questions really quick.
Sure.
One around tags, whether tags can be auto-created from Active Directory groups. I didn't find anything on that. I don't know if you've tested that out or aware if that's possible.
No, I have not seen that.
I think it's all manually created. Then there's a question, any of this work with Graph?
For the tags, or for which piece?
I think, was that question, maybe the person can clarify that, whether that was during the tags or. Yeah, I'll see if there's a.
Okay. Well, if it comes back, we can come back to that.
One for the last one was, can you save a query?
You can pin queries, depending on where you're running those at. There's ways to, like inside. Well, it depends on. So inside of the search that I was just showing, no, but there's other places that you can run a query, like with the WhoBot. And from there, you can pin that query. So if you're searching for somebody from that knows about sales, you can then pin that query and basically go back to that query.
Okay.
So, I just, in terms of the SharePoint search, and which does give you the capability to save queries on that side, I'm just combining the two here. So I'm really just using SharePoint Search as an example because it's something that it adds additional functionality into the search capabilities that Teams gives you with the content searching. And I think the interface is a little better in a lot of cases. So just kind of show you quickly around that is, to just add a new website tab, we're just going to click the plus sign at the top and select the website option here and give it a name. So we'll say search. And we're going to give it the URL for the search. And as part of that, I'm going to add in Q equals sales as part of that. Now that's my query because I'm inside of a sales team. I just want to return all types of sales content. That query can be much more complex again as part of that, so that if you need to refine the results that you're seeing there. But you can see here, the interface you get, it's a typical SharePoint search interface. You've got the people that are coming back with it. You've got all of their information that you can access from it. So you can send them an email, chat with them from in here. You've got their email address. You've got, what documents they're working on, who do they report to, who are their teammates, and you can access all of that right from inside of this interface. So it's nice to be able to bring some of that inside of Teams. So you can see you've got additional file capabilities here, searching, and down here on the bottom. So with a PowerPoint, if we hover over this PowerPoint for investor relations, what it'll allow us to do is it'll actually open that up right here, so that this thumbnail, so that we can view the document by just clicking through it and see the different slides that are in that deck. Now, you have the description, you have, when it was modified, and you can open it directly from here. So it's a richer functionality, and it's nice to be able to bring that inside of Teams. You can do filters and all with it. You've got different scopes that you can, define down to your search results. Do I just want to see files? Do I want to see sites, people, news? And you can refine your result set with the refiners. The one thing to keep in mind with this is, although, we all know that Teams stores a lot of its data in a SharePoint site collection, but not all of its data is stored in there. So there's things like messages that are not going to show up in these search results. At the same time, I think it's a richer experience for searching, data that is in OneDrive, data that's, actual file-based data that's inside of that site collection. So, that's basically one way to use the website tab. Any other websites, things like Salesforce.com and, Dynamics, and, you can just pretty much I've yet to find a website that you haven't been able to pull in with the website tab. So, it's a great way to pull other content into, or make it accessible as part of your team to help them with their day-to-day business processes. So the next one is really just reordering teams. People, again, it goes back to being able to find information. I think Christian's going to talk about this a little more later, but you can hide your channels. You can pin them so that they're more accessible for you. But one of the things for me has always been, I usually work with a large set of teams that I'm working around, but usually the number of, and they're pretty much client projects, but the ones that are taking the most of my time, I want to keep at the top so that I can access them quickly. And also the capability to just drag and drop and rearrange them based on the priority that I'm working with is important for me, because it changes on a daily basis. So, just from the ellipse here, I could select hide and hide the sales and marketing, or I can go on to my Mark8 project team and just basically, long click it and select it, and then just drag and drop it. And same with the Mark8, I can retail, I can adjust that and move them down, and just give me a easy capability to quickly reorder the teams that I'm working in. And again, because it's something that I do on a daily basis, and I can show and hide channels as I need them. So that's pretty much around the reordering of the teams. So the other thing that, again, it's something that shocks me is often, for a couple of reasons. Basically, when I go into a new company, and I find very often that people do not realize, users do not realize that they can send messages to their external customers and business partners. They send it. They're very used to using it internally, but often it comes up that they don't know that they can do that with their customers and business partners, or anybody that's external, that as long as they're on the Office 365 platform, or on Skype, they can message them. So that increases the velocity of business and all with that. So it's something that I think is important. And to do it, you don't have to. You can reference them just directly through an email address. You don't have to add them into your team or anything. So you can just go up to the command bar, and in this case, I'm just using myself. Russ at xl365.com. Hi, Russ. And the message is sent. So as I'm working with business partners and customers, I'll basically just do that and just jump right up. So just to kind of take a look at this, I just, it runs a search, brings back my ID when it finds it. And the first time you do that, you have to enter the whole email address itself. But then you just type your message and hit enter, and off it goes. And then down on the right side, I can, from my own side here, I'll get the message, and then I can reply right back to Megan, who I'm actually logged in as here, and just say thanks for your message. So that's how fast it happens. So taking advantage of that and having everybody use that capability is something that I think it's important that we get that out to everybody. All right, Christian.
All right,
you're
so
on
if you
board
float
here.
down, so I can't see the request control button is grayed out. So Russ, I don't know if you're able to float down over it, give me the control, but
I am not even seeing an option to give you control on my own side.
Okay, well, so you'll be doing a lot of clicking on my behalf then.
Yeah.
All right, so let's jump right in. I've got a few slides that have builds, but some of these tips will be shorter. So let's move forward. So this has been a request for a long time, is to have a better integrated experience between Teams and Outlook. I think that there have been constituencies that have been back with the Yammer acquisition by Microsoft, and then with the creation of Teams, where this question that's been out there of which tool do we use when. The reality has always been that there are some activities where the best tool to use is email. There's other activities where Teams and Yammer, there are some powerful use cases for Yammer as a social network inside of your organization. And so the fact that Microsoft finally came together and, hey, we're going to provide some integrations between these things has been it's fantastic. But one of the most requested things is if I interact with somebody and they're very email centric, how do I pull them into the conversation where that contextual chat is happening? And it's through this new integration with Outlook and Teams. So if you want to click next. So once you have this enabled, so you do need to enable that, all that you do is you go to that conversation where you want to pull people into it. You can see over on the right side, and click on the ellipses, and you'll see that share to Outlook button. So you can take that conversation in a threaded conversation. There could be attachments, other actions out of that, and share that with Outlook. So if you want to click on the next, you'll see it'll open up that dialog box where you can continue that conversation. It'll process there, and then as you move forward, as it pulls up, you'll have the ability, you'll have that browser experience where you can add, it'll pull from your from the gal all of your contacts, and then as you type out that message, you just hit send, it'll process. And if you want to move it forward, move it again. Yep, you can actually, that last screen was showing that you can attach things. It'll pull from your recent, so it's using the AI capabilities of the rich experiences of what were the last documents that I was working on, and pulling from all of your local as well as cloud resources to send an attachment. And then, that's essentially what it looks like. It will send it embedded within the body of that email. You can respond and directly to that. That conversation will then become a part of that chat history over on Teams. And so this is just a great way that if you have people that are working across multiple platforms, yet everything is in context. You want to make sure that you're not immediately having a conversation in email that's critical to that Teams visibility, the transparency of your collaboration, and want to pull people back in. Sometimes it's appropriate. Hey, going to take this offline. You want to just send that one-on-one email. Could you do that via chat and Teams? Yes, but know your audience. What are people comfortable with, familiar with? And then try to draw them into these conversations. The second part of this is something that we're still waiting on, is in Outlook. They've been promising, they said by end of Q2, I think with the COVID quarantines, a lot of delivery times have been delayed. But from Outlook to be able to push things to a Teams channel, so to send that or share to Teams, we're still waiting for that. So I think it was discussed in detail. There might be a video on it from the product team, came out during Ignite last year.
Yeah, I was going to say
something that we're still waiting for.
I was going to say that goes back to like October, November of last year.
Yeah, so we are. So you're not missing anything. It's not. I have not seen an update of things being rolled out. I think we're still waiting for that feature. That's just part of the global delay that we're seeing with some features. All right, next. This is another important one. So this was shared by my good friend Tom Duff. Tom and I, if you're not aware, we do monthly webinars where we share productivity tips across Microsoft 365, so not just Teams. And so we often both do kind of best of presentations like this one, where we draw on some of the materials that each other have created. But this is one where, and of course, this is a great example where we both wanted to present on this one, and Tom got there first. The channel cross posting is a great feature, because sometimes you're in a channel, you're focused in that conversation, but it might be a specific project that you're working on, but you say, hey, you know what, this needs to be shared with multiple projects, multiple teams, in multiple locations. And so now you have this ability to go in there and as you create a new post, and you can click on the next one. So you're starting a new conversation, you're as part of that entry, go into the formatting button, and you'll see this option at the top of that message there. New conversation, everyone can reply, post in multiple channels. If you click on the post in multiple channels, that's what you'll see here. You'll see where the existing threaded conversation is happening, and then you can select other channels where you want that conversation to happen. And then you can create the content accordingly for those multiple audiences. So it's a great way to get a message out to multiple project teams within multiple channels within a team. And then, of course, it's just works like an email. You've got the 2 fields there, and then once you're done, just hit send to forward that to each of those different channels. And so you now see it in each of those channels, each of those locations, and then you have that icon, that link, to show that it's been cross-posted between different threaded conversations. So nice little feature. Just more on where you're seeing it in the multiple locations. Tom proving that was the case. Yes, it's true. And then you can delete the message from a single channel or all channels. So you have that ability as well. So if you're sending out a message, you can't edit the message once it's multi-channel sent. You can only delete it and resend that. So if you do send out an announcement about an event that's happening, a team meeting, you got the date wrong or the time wrong, delete it, recreate it, resend that. And that's a powerful feature. Yeah, there's just what I just said, the caveats there, you can't edit, you have to delete it. The next one is something, and Russ and I were talking about this before we started recording, about the quality of the phone call. And sometimes if you've seen it, if you've got a weaker connection, you'll see kind of the messaging come up on your screen. You want to know how this is going to impact your call. Well, one thing, it's a nice little kind of side tip here, is up in the search bar, if you just do the /, you're going to get to the menu of the different controls and options that you have. One of those is running a test call. So it's a great way to go in there, especially if you're on the road. Most of us are at home, locked away, but when you're traveling, especially, I've done a number of calls, webinars, and just team meetings from hotel rooms and from spotty conference center Wi-Fi connections. And going in and doing the test call is just a great way to go in and see, hey, am I going to have issues here, or is this going to be sufficient for my needs? So do the /, type in test call, and what happens if you go to the next screen is that opens up. It'll actually dial in a call. It'll have you leave like a short message, like a voicemail message. I'll go to the next one. So once you record that and capture the video from that, you'll kind of see yourself. It'll test to make sure everything is working properly. Next screen. And then if everything's green, if everything's tested out, it'll let you know. It'll yellow or red each of those different items. And so it'll allow you to go in and adjust some of those settings, and just things to think about. And this isn't guidance that was shared by Teams. It's been just kind of general internet that's out there. But think about this. If you're in a meeting and you have video, you're presenting slides, and you have audio all through your computer, obviously that is going to use up a lot more bandwidth than just one of those on their own. But you can still have an effective meeting if you have just a bad connectivity. You can still have an effective meeting without your video by still sharing your slides and having the audio. Or if you don't have video and you can't share slides but are still able to join by audio. And so that should be the order of if you have any kind of connectivity issues. Start with removing your video or the slides. Generally, if you're presenting, you want to share the slides. If you're not presenting and just want to participate but are having problems with video or sharing, default, turn those other things off and just have audio, and you should be able to get through. If there aren't adjustments that you can make for that reduced bandwidth. So it's great to have this little feature to test things out. Another great feature you're probably aware of, Microsoft has made adjustments to this on occasion. They just added some vendor solutions, but is connecting your cloud storage. One of my favorite use cases for Teams, and one of the ways that I use it myself. I run a small business. I have part-time employees. I work with a major university here in Utah and leverage grad students for research projects. And so I bring them on project by project basis. And so I've set up teams where we're working on a project, we're working with a client or a group of clients where I provide everything that they need access to, all of the tools, the client sites, the research sites that are relevant to that project, all as tabs, all as resources within the team site, so that when I invite them in, they have everything that they need. And it's something that I love about that. And so there's two ways that you can provide access to that cloud storage, of course, is a tab or in the files experience. So very quickly to show you what that is like, from the tab experience, it's hopefully everybody's familiar with that, but the next slide. So when you're in the Teams experience, one of the things that I do is I add SharePoint sites. So when you go and you select from that first window, SharePoint is as a cloud storage. This is another way that you can access and provide better access to your project teams inside of Teams to legacy SharePoint environments. So they may not have modern sites, they may not have teams that are associated with them, but are still relevant. I always use the example. I used to go and build out project management organizations, PMOs, for companies as a consultant and as a full-time employee. And so having a centralized project site and having access to like your project management methodology, all of your documentation, reporting and tools, all those kinds of things in a centralized SharePoint portal. And you then may want to go and add access to that document library with all of the methodology, all of the templates to every single one of your Teams sites for your project sites. And so go and add that as a tab. You point to that SharePoint site, point to that document library. If you click on next, you could then go in and name the tab and hit save. And then what'll happen is at the top of the tabs, you'll see it there with the name and you'll have that view. So that's adding access as a tab. The other way that you can connect to cloud storage, and of course, I'm using SharePoint in that first example. You can also link to various SharePoint document libraries in the files experience, as well as in both locations to third-party cloud solutions. And so, there's the adding via tab. There's the various options there. You'll get those native integrations with various solution providers out there. But in the files experience, and this is the last build on this as well. Actually there's one after this, but which I'll get to. But so you have these native experiences. These are these partners with these very common cloud storage. Now, what's the difference between adding a Dropbox link as a tab versus inside of the files? Well, it just depends on the navigation, how bloated the navigation is, how you have your members of your team or your channels working with each of those resources. You might want to go in and add part of that file experience if people are working a lot that way. Honestly, I go in and add both ways. I might have, like, if you click on the next one, like if I select one of those third-party solutions, essentially it'll have you log in and, similar to the SharePoint experience, identify which library, which file share, however that connection is, adds it as a folder so that when I'm going in and saving files, you cannot change the default save location. Like if you're just in a chat in your general channel and you want to upload a document, that goes into the files, into the default SharePoint site that was created as part of the creation of the group in the Microsoft team. However, I do have, if our internal policy is that once we finalize all of that project documentation, I go and I install it, for example, into my Ignite versus SharePoint or OneDrive. We use Ignite for these assets, these completed assets. That's why I would have this third-party cloud storage in my file experience. Likewise, I could have that as a tab. I can add Ignite or Dropbox as a tab as well, just to give people multiple paths to share and collaborate with content in those cloud storage locations. So it's pretty easy to do either way, just depending on how you want to work. Another one that's unrelated to the stuff I just shared about, but just is a really cool feature, especially if you are having trouble, if you want to have kind of a hands-free experience in reading through content that's been shared via Teams and via any of the Office applications, you now have that immersive reader. So if you go in and you see, like, if there's like my company and other partner sites that I'm a member of, they do these huge announcements via Teams. And to go and read through all that content, sometimes I want to work on multiple things and have the luxury of having that content read back to me. All I do, if you go to the next build, is float over that lengthy content, select the ellipses, and you'll see down below it, next build, is the immersive reader. And so select that. The next screen will show you. It'll open that up. So if you're, especially if you're visually impaired, you can change the settings if you want it bigger or smaller from that. But what I love is just go and hit that play button down at the bottom. You can change the speed of that content. You can decide whether you want the male or female voice, but you hit play and have that lengthy content read back to you. And then of course you can have that default, the settings of how you want that to look as the content is read through, as it's highlighted. You can actually go in and have it highlighted. You see from that middle panel whether you want to color code the language, nouns, verbs, adjectives, adverbs, if you want to have those labels as you're reading through. So if you're proofing content, for example, that can be a nice, useful tool. So it's great to have this as a tool. And again, if you're not familiar with the immersive reader, it's available in all the Office applications. So it's great that they extended that with Teams, as well as available through all of the mobile versions of those things. So you can go, if you're even in Outlook, if you've not used that hands-free, that immersive reader in Outlook, it's fantastic when you're driving, and actually has some intelligence behind it where it will tell you how long it'll take to read through the content. So it's just some really cool capabilities that Microsoft has enabled. All right, back to you, Russ.
Okay. Thanks, Christian. So I'm going to make as quick possible work out of these as I can. So we're going to start with the WhoBot, and essentially it gives you access to find out information about people in your organization, and the bigger the company, the more important it is. So this is an app you can basically add to your left panel by just selecting the ellipse and entering who, and you can pin it to the left so that you have quick access to it from there. There's other ways of accessing it, but from here you can come down to the bottom and you can just start asking the bot questions. You can ask them who knows about, who works with. So if I say who works with Miriam, comes back and it's going to tell me there's 15 people, and it basically shows me a list of everyone that's working. This is one of those places that you can pin that query so that if you want to come back to it in the future, you have quick access to it. There's the other questions you can ask in here is, you can say who reports to Miriam, and come back with her direct reports in that case. And you can just keep going through these questions. Who's her manager, and it's going to come back and tell you that Patty is her manager. Patty's the president of the organization, but you can see all the information that's available here, and you can start a chat directly with Patty. You can see what the organization structure looks like. You can do a call, video call, audio call. You can see who her peers and all are. So you got access to all of that information. So as long as actually that's being populated in from Active Directory, Azure Active Directory. So as long as that information is there, it'll become searchable for you. And here's one that who have I messaged about, and this is one of the ones that I've used a lot. There's a couple of them that are just, I don't know, I have a hard time putting people to content, I think, and it's I remember a specific topic or something I was messaging somebody about, but then I don't remember who it was to, and I can go in and I can just ask, who did I message about legal, and it'll come back, okay, Joni, and it basically tells me that anybody that I've exchanged that message with in the past 12 months is who's going to show up in the results here. So Joni in this case is the only one. But I can say things like who was in the meeting about. I can just in general say who knows about legal, and as you go through, you can just ask the different questions. So who is Lee? And it gives you all of their contact information again, so you can manage them or contact them directly, have chats, discussions, emails, and just go through those. So another one is the meetings about for me is another one that's tough. So I know, I'm talking about a certain company or something, and but I don't remember who I was in the meeting with. So it gives me a quick way of getting back to that information. And from this perspective, it's honestly, this isn't even in a big company. If you're working with different partners and all, or customers, they may be much bigger companies, yet I can still track down information about those messages and all. So that's also so another thing is with the forms. So you got the capability to use Microsoft Forms inside of Teams to be able to create data intake, and you can create very customized forms, get graphical summaries of the results, and you can export those results out to Excel. So there's different levels of the capability, but you can build a very simple form that basically, no matter what your level of technical capabilities are, as long as you can do drag and drop, you can basically select that. So, if there's an existing form here, you can choose an existing form, or you can create a new form. So we're just going to say new customer intake here, and you can say, at the bottom here, whether to post that to the channel, which is something that if you want everybody else to know the form is there, you're going to want to leave that selected and hit save, and it opens up this form. And now you have a tab at the top called new customer intake. Well, now you can build out this form. So let's add a customer name field to it. And we're just going to use this. The first one's just going to be a text field so that we can capture that information. We can say it's required. If it's a long answer, I can select that here. We can add a request date to this and determine whether that's required or not. And we can add another one for request status, and we can give it the name for the field, but we can set what the options are so that it's a multi-select. So we can say new. We can add another one for an open status. We can have an in progress status, and we can have a closed status. And you can build out your fields this way for your form. Again, it's like no development required. You're just entering information, and you have a form here. And there's a responses tab up at the top right with any as they respond, they can actually add that in, or you'll see the responses listed there. But you can set a theme for it. So there's a large selections of themes. You can use just different colors. You can add themes in. We're just going to select the one here with the two young ladies at the top, and it sets that the background and all for that form. You can also put a header image in here too, but you can build fairly robust capabilities and this is the forms experience inside of Teams too. If you go directly to Microsoft Forms on the Microsoft 365 platform, you even have more capabilities. But here you can edit the name of the form if you need to go back to it. If you want to see the responses, we can click on responses. So there's no response here, but we're going to add one in here. If we want to go and preview the form, you can take a look at that. So here's the actual form. So let's enter a customer in as Contoso Company. And set a request date for today. So if I scroll down here a little bit, and we'll just select today's date, the 21st, and we can select the status for this as being new and submit it. So now that's submitted, and this also has a mobile view for it. I should have showed it to you with the other one, but you can take a copy of this form and create your own form from it. So if you had a partner intake or something, you can do that. But here's the, so it's used as a template, but that was the mobile view there. So if we go back here now, you can see up at the top where it says responses. There's one response in there. So if I click on that, it will show us the details around that response. And you can see even for the one for the request status, you have a nice graphical view. So as you add more and more responses in, you get a graphical view of those results. And you can view the actual form itself. So if you have 100 different results, you can go through the forms for each one of these and show each one.
One of my favorite things
as Excel
is that you can integrate this in it, like with the PowerPoint integration. So you can actually build forms like a survey, midway and at the end of a presentation in PowerPoint, share that out in Teams, publish that to SlideShare, create a video and have survey questions and publish that to Stream or elsewhere. And people can, mid-presentation complete, your couple questions and a training, for example, and you track all those stats in real time. Some really cool stuff you can do with forms.
Yep. It's great capabilities there. So just jump back. You've got a Excel view of it, and you can filter and all. You have all the capabilities inside of Excel. So this one I have to give credit to Christian. I borrowed it from him because I just thought it was great. And when you're working with clients and you're getting contracts back and forth, going back and forth, I do a lot of that work in Teams. But then, previously we had to pull it outside of Teams. You'd sign it, scan it, send it back in, or you use some of the other electronic signing tools and all. Well, Microsoft a few months ago released the new Office mobile app. And as part of that, it gives you the capability to sign a PDF right inside. So if I open the Office mobile app here, this is on my phone, it shows me a list of documents, first of all, that I opened recently, and I take a look at the Contoso Electronics document. You can see in the top section here, there's no signature or anything in there at this point. But then down at the bottom, I have an option to select there as an action called sign a PDF. So as I select that, it asks me to open which document do I want to sign, and it says, okay, where do you want to sign it? So I'll select where on the document I want to sign it, and then I just give my scribble scratch for my signature. In this case, I'm playing Megan, so I'm just going to sign Megan's signature. I can store that signature, and actually, let me drag this back onto the screen here so you can see it. But the the signature is right in that blank area, and essentially you can have that anywhere on the document. You're not so much putting that in place. When the person opens the document, they'd scroll through the PDF and find out where they're supposed to sign it, and then they can basically just say insert it here, and they can store their signature and all. So you don't necessarily have to do it every time. But I just think with like contracts and it just makes that whole process electronic, and it's just a great capabilities.
And so, you don't need to pay for another third-party solution. Sorry.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. And then the last one is future stuff, and this just announced this week is Microsoft Lists, and also a heads up with Christian here. So this was actually announced at the Build conference this week that was taking place. And it reminds me very much of the Microsoft To-Do capability. If you kind of take To-Do and that type of list style and you combine it with like a SharePoint list style, you get Microsoft lists based on what I've seen so far. So there's a web version, a mobile version like Teams. You have a web app and a mobile app. You can create templates and all for your lists. There's different types of ways of viewing them. You can view them as cards, grids, calendars. You can take conversations, and they're actually integrated into a list. So if you have 100 items in the list, you can have a conversation around one of those items. You know, you can basically either create an existing list or create a new list inside of Teams. So if you had, in other words, if you have a inside of Microsoft Lists, you have an existing list already, you can then add that into Teams, or you can create a new list inside of Teams. So from here, just to take a look, this is, you know, just a screenshot of the create a list screen, and you can, you know, create a list from Excel. You can create it from an existing list. You can create it from a bunch of templates, and you can just see some of the templates that are available at this point. And this is coming in the future. This actually isn't, has not been released as part of the platform yet, but it is coming. So here's a look at one of the lists, and you can see again, it's kind of got that SharePoint-ish feel to a list or Excel, but you've got a, you know, a speakers column here, a people column where you got their actual pictures. You've got color-coded fields around session types, and you've got a conversation field here too that you can also select and view a conversation around an additional item, an individual item, or have a conversation around that item. And so you have your conversation here on the right with your item on the left, and it just makes it very contextual around that conversation. Okay, so that's
it's a big deal. If you've not seen it, there's videos and stuff on the lists, and it's very exciting stuff, and we'll be talking about it much more in the coming months.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, I'm going to try and go through these in pretty quick pace here, but the first one, so pinning a channel. So as Russ was talking about earlier, and cleaning up that experience, and the next two tips are all about cleaning up that navigation experience. So we have a lot of teams that we're made members of, then there's tons of channels within that. And so sometimes it's just really difficult to kind of, keep up what's happening here. So one of the things you can do is in that the channel is go in there and pin the specific channels. And this is just a way for you personally. It doesn't impact what's, everybody else's view, what they're seeing, even as you as the team owner, doesn't impact what other people see. So you go to the next one. If I pin this channel, I'm a member of this new product. And so I'm the most active in that. I don't care about those other 4 channels. New product is where all my activity is. So if I pin that, select pin, it immediately changes the view. It adds it to those favorites. So at the top of my navigation, no matter what happens, and as Russ talked about, that you can favorite and unfavorite teams. Doesn't mean that you've removed yourself from those teams. It removes them from your immediate view in the left nav, so you're not bogged down by teams that you're a member of, but you're not actively participating in. You're still accessible to all the content and conversations by search, but by pinning just the most relevant projects, the channels that you're active in, is just a great clean navigation and a way to find what you're working on. So if we want to jump forward, and then to remove, of course, is just select and deselect pin, and it will remove it from the pinned items. All right, the next one is a newer capability, is pinning apps to that left-hand rail. And so sometimes there might be, like, great example, that WhoBot that Russ just demonstrated. And that's really important. You're using it all the time. And so you want to be able to go in and just add it, just like everything on that left nav. I want to add it to my left rail. And so it's just as simple as you click on the ellipses, the next screen, click on the ellipses, find the app that you're actively using, and then and pin it. And so the next one, like I use the AppBot as an example. So you've got it pinned. You can now interact with that. And then to remove it, as simple as unpinning that. You can block it or uninstall it. Just be aware that if you have it installed into a team, if you uninstall it from this view, you're not uninstalling it from the left rail. You're uninstalling that app. But this is something that is just really useful. As an admin, you have the ability to go in there and set as part of the default provisioning of any new teams that the WhoBot is always there, for example. And so I've got some links to the capabilities for that admin experience. Now, the next tip is the Yammer community app. And again, I'm a big fan of Yammer, have used it for years prior to Microsoft's acquisition of the technology. But this is one of the questions people had asked, and I've been advising people for years. If you have your SharePoint portal, you have Yammer social communities, and now there's this Teams thing, and how do we know where to go in between those? And my advice was, have external links on SharePoint, you've got them in Yammer, and you have links capability within Teams or through tabs. And so just make sure that you have tabs for Yammer and SharePoint within your team. You have links to SharePoint and Teams within Yammer, and links to Teams and Yammer within your SharePoint environment. That's a lot of manual linking between those environments. And so one of the things that's nice about this is, again, if you are in an organization that's leveraging Yammer for those communities, there's two ways that you can link to Yammer, is by adding to your left rail as the application, which is just a quick jump to all of your organization's communities. So it essentially takes you to your company Yammer site. And so if you click on that view, so you click to the next one, add it in there. So now it's added to your left rail. If you go back one, Bill, there we go. Add to the left rail. You can actually select the communities that you want to link to. Again, that Yammer left rail experience, as you can see, it's to your company Yammer, all of the communities that you're a member of. You can create and discover other communities in the environment. If you're in a channel and want to add a specific Yammer conversation or community to that channel, then you do that as a tab. So it's a slightly different experience and integration from that left rail experience, which is everything Yammer, to that tab experience. So I think if you go to the next one, you can have that interactive experience. Of course, there's also news on integration with Yammer and Outlook. So there's some really cool stuff that's happening, is like I talked about earlier with the Outlook Teams integration, to draw people into these community experiences. So this is just saying here, I'm adding the communities, add that in there, and then you have that experience. And I think do I have another build on that? Yeah, so here, the specific Yammer group, maybe a specific that partner initiative activity that's happening, hit save, and it adds that in. So you can create both internal and external Yammer communities, directly from this interface. And there it is. I added that partner initiative as a tab. So I want to make this visible to everybody. The Yammer button on the left side is for my view into all those Yammer communities. Adding it as a tab, I'm sharing out that direct link to that Yammer discussion with my community. And so here it's just going in and sharing some of the, discovering the groups and going to that Yammer experience. So you have kind of a quick way to jump over and to discover other Yammer communities that you might want to participate in. Well, let's get to 19. Like there's internal, external. So giving people praise is another one of those out of the box experiences that is, still is part of the Yammer experience, but now they've built that into Teams as well. And so it's just another way that you can go in as somebody's profile, click on the ellipses, you'll get the ability to add praise. So if you click on the next, if you have praise deployed as an app within that team, and so you can give people badges. And then you can actually go in and track and measure on badges. So you have some visibility as a team owner into what praise people are receiving, and use that as just a way to recognize people for the work that they're doing and see how peers are recognizing each other. So as a manager, it's always good to see, if you're a people manager, to see how are people talking about others. Am I able to see kind of rising stars in the organization based on feedback from their peers as part of that 365-degree feedback mechanism? So that's that. Let's think. So again, this is just, you're selecting the badge, you're sending it. It shows up within that feed, so you can send that as part of a group chat. You can put that as part of a threaded discussion. So however you want to recognize that individual. And the last tip, if you do not have this bookmarked, you need to go do that today, is the Microsoft Teams Adoption Guide. So they're constantly, there's the link there. It's out in a number of different places. I've written about it extensively, but this is a living, breathing guide that Microsoft is adding to. As you can see from the front cover, there's that video right there with Caruana at the top of that. It's a very rich experience. It folds open like a magazine, and then has other training resources, links to support guides and templates. If you go to my last screen, it'll show that it actually, if you're struggling with adoption and engagement within teams, they actually do provide a methodology with links to the resources that are available that are constantly updated with templates. So if you're just like, what kind of email do I send out to my entire organization to get them to go and start using these new features? So they provide that kind of guidance, those quick start guides and other tools that you can start using out of the box. And that was my last tip.
And there's a lot of great content out there. All right, folks. Well, thank you for hanging in with us. Apologize that we ran so far over, but we wanted to give you all of the information. And if we're going to go through the Q&A, and we'll respond back to the Q&A, so you can, if you submitted a question, we'll get back to you with an answer. And also, if you need to have a question that you want to get to either Christian or myself, our LinkedIn is the URLs there, and the YouTube URL is where you can expect to find the recording for this. So if you want to share it out with your other team members or what, that's where it'll be. Folks, Christian, thank you so much. Everyone that has joined, thank you so much. I appreciate you joining us. Have a great day.
Thanks a lot.